production. But there's another type of Christmas candy that you might not know about, especially if you're not from the US. And it's also made right here at Lucas Candies. Introducing Brittle. Brittle is a traditional Christmas candy in the southern United States made with a few simple ingredients: peanuts, sugar, corn syrup, and baking soda. The baking soda creates tiny air bubbles that make the brittle light and airy. In most recipes, the corn syrup is liquid, but Nick and Deb use a solid version. This keeps the moisture low, which leads to a crispier, non-sticky feel. Nick's family has been making brittle for generations, but he and Deb wanted to try something new. Both love craft beer, and one day they thought, what if we added to the brittle? It worked even better than they imagined, adding a depth of flavor no one expected. Their favorite is a chocolate and peanut butter porter, which has rich malty notes that strengthen the caramelized sugar and roasted peanut flavors, making the brittle bold and unique. The process starts by melting the sugar and solid corn syrup together. The solid corn syrup usually comes from specialty suppliers and costs around $4 to $6 per pound. Once melted, they add raw Spanish peanuts. Cooking them directly in the bubbling sugar roasts them perfectly and infuses them with a sweet, caramelized flavor. Man, what a treat! Constant stirring is needed to keep the peanuts from burning. At the same time, the mixture has to reach exactly 310 degrees Fahrenheit, known as the hard crack stage. They use a high-quality candy thermometer to get this right. Nick and Deb learned through trial and error how to get it just right. Once the combination reaches the right temperature, they add butter solids. Unlike regular butter, which has water, butter solids give 100% pure flavor without adding moisture. This brings out a richness that works well with the sweet, nutty base. Then they add baking soda and salt. The baking soda reacts with the hot mix, creating tiny air bubbles that make the brittle light and airy. It kinda looks like a fun science experiment, don't you think? After that, they pour the mix onto a flat surface to cool. They use a heat-resistant marble slab, which allows the heat to spread out evenly. Once poured, they flip and stretch the brittle while it's still soft. Stretching the brittle takes strength and skill, and it took years to master. Knowing when to flip and stretch is what turns a good batch into a great one. When the brittle cools enough to handle, it's time to break it into pieces. In the early days, you could do this by hand, which was slow and tiring. But here, an old tool called the brittle hammer is used. This lightweight mallet makes the job faster and the pieces more uniform. And the way the brittle breaks into perfect shards ready for packaging is so cool. While their beer brittle is the star, Nick and Deb also make a variety of chocolate treats. Their main equipment for this is a large chocolate kettle which can hold up to 600 pounds of chocolate. During the holidays, they use thousands of molds to make chocolates like Christmas trees, Santas, and snowmen. Each mold is vibrated to remove air bubbles before cooling, ensuring the chocolates look professional. During busy times, the workshop is a literal whirlwind of activity, with Nick, Deb, and their small team working long hours to keep up. But when you take a bite out of